Alright, class, I didn't think I was going to have to talk about this with all of you because I figured it would be very self-explanatory, but we gotta talk about these allegations. Oh my gosh, are you going to talk about the roaring frog thing again? It's just a joke, alright? No one actually takes it seriously. No, I was actually not going to talk about the roaring frog joke, but now that you mention it, I feel like it is important to at least remind everyone that it is just a joke, alright? I like the joke just as much as you do, but sometimes people tend to take jokes a little too seriously, especially if those jokes are how they get their lore. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's talk about the weird root. Alright, so for some reason I keep seeing things online, like reading comments, seeing videos of people saying that the weird route is going to be the good route. Like, it's going to be the true good ending. It is completely justifiable, I promise, alright? The ends are going to justify the means for sure. Okay, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and I completely understand the sentiment. I mean, hell, I felt the same way as well all the way up until I played chapters 4 and 5. I first started thinking about that from this video from this guy. He had this video series back when it was just chapters 1 and 2 about how to play Deltarune as the worst person possible. And then at the end of the second bit, where we did chapter 2, we obviously did the weird route, and then really fucked with Noel real hard. But anyway, the point is, at the end of that video, he justified everything by saying something along the lines of, oh, if I know Toby Fox and I know Toby Fox, he's probably intending for this to be the best possible route because the roaring is inevitable. Now, I agree with him there. The roaring is going to happen no matter what. He says that we're trying to get stronger so that way we can beat the roaring, but, you get stronger and then whoopsies, you use Snowgrave on the night and it turns out to be December holiday, and then what do you have? You have a mourning Noelle who's grieving the loss of the sister that she was looking for her entire life, and who's she going to turn to get her revenge? Won't be Chris, it's going to be you, the soul. So let's just dial back on doing the weird route. I still understand doing it for curiosity's sake. Hell, I'm going to be doing that pretty soon. But overall, the weird route is not going to be a good ending. It could be better than a normal ending, even with all of the recruits, because after all, the roaring will turn all of the darkness to stone. But that might not be the case, and we'll get to that very soon, don't worry. So I know what you're thinking. Teach, if the roaring is inevitable, and getting stronger via the weird route is not viable, then what are we supposed to do? All of the darkness that we recruit are going to turn into statues, and we're going to end up being stuck with nothing but our gear to make us stronger. Possibly. We don't know if the roaring will take place in its own dark world, or if everyone will be stuck as their white world selves. That would really suck. But I'll assume that it's the former, and I do have a solution for that. So obviously there's going to be spoilers for Deltarune Chapter 5. Just its normal route, I have not played the weird route there, so please no spoilers in the comments or anything like that. Anyways, in Chapter 5, there's this moment where Chris and Rouse are both in a hot spring together, and they can talk about stuff. And, well, Rouse ends up telling Chris, hey, I'm not gonna paraphrase, I'm just gonna... Rouse basically tells Chris that when they left to go to the festival, he tried playing the song that Chris played in Chapter 4 on the piano. He tried playing it on the piano in Castletown, but he wasn't able to play it exactly the same way as Chris did. He played all the same notes in the same order, with the same timing, but it wasn't the same. It felt different, as if Chris is able to do stuff that Rouse can't. And that's actually a very, very big thing, because that basically means that if the soul just relinquishes control and lets Chris do what Chris needs to do, they'll be able to do amazing things. And Rouse even says this himself. He says something along the lines of, if you do something that I don't agree with, it's just because I know that I just don't know what you're doing yet, and that it's going to be something good. And that got me thinking about the Twisted Sword. And I'm going to be going back to my favorite Deltarune theorist here for a moment. Halfbreadchaos already made a video about the Twisted Sword. And in this video, they had multiple conclusions for what it could be.
Theory 1. The Twisted Sword is for a redemption arc. If Deltarune is 7 chapters long, then that's 5 more chapters to turn ourselves away from this cold and terrible path we've started down. Or, Theory 2. The Twisted Sword is for Chris to take back control from the player. Because when you think about it, there are a lot of little implications that Chris doesn't like what we're doing. We can see it in the flavor text implying Chris and Birdley used to be friends, in the way Susie and Ralsei respond to seeing Chris's expression after Birdley is frozen. Apparently Chris appears to be in quite a bit of pain after what we just put them through, and in Chris's refusal to leave the player alone with Susie and Noelle a few minutes later, despite Ralsei's repeated prompting. And of course, there's the scene later in the hospital, where Noelle talks about how Chris has been acting very differently, and although we are clearly still able to control Chris enough to dictate their speech and other basic behaviors, Susie still informs us that when it comes to their expression, Chris definitely doesn't seem to be very enthusiastic about what's happening.
The Twisted Sword, much like the Thorn Ring, has the trance ability, but instead of the symbol being like a default, like placeholder symbol or the same ring circular symbol that the Thorn Ring has, it's a downward arrow, meaning that whoever wields the Twisted Sword is going to have, well, they're going to be in less of a trance. And so if Chris wields the Twisted Sword, then they're going to have more autonomy, they're going to have more control over themselves, and we as the player are going to have to let them take control. So now I know what you're thinking. Oh, that means that we just need to start Snowgrave, start the weird route, stop right at Birdley when we have the Thorn Ring, and then make sure that Noelle doesn't have the Thorn Ring equipped, or at the very least, unequip it after the Birdley fight because we're not using Snowgrave on him. And I commend you. That is a very, very good guess. But you're wrong. No, you need to have every recruit, and I know this because Toby Fox has been leaving little clues, little Easter eggs all over each chapter. Not too important, not too unimportant either. I don't know what the direct effects collecting and storing all of the eggs throughout the chapters has, but I'm sure with time we'll figure that out. I'm not talking about the eggs directly, but rather the ways you get them. Chapter 1, you get the egg from the room with the original Starwalker, and the room with the invisible switch. You go back and forth, you get the egg. Now, in the room with the Starwalker, you can miss one Darkner, the original Starwalker. After you get rid of the bird, walk all the way back to the start of the room, you'll see him there. Then, talk to the original Starwalker at the dungeon of the Card Castle, and bada bing bada boom, he'll join you in Castletown. He'll even join you in Chapter 2, he'll end up hanging out with Onina and Wanino. Yes, I changed the way I pronounce their name. Fuck you, I'll do whatever I want. And then he'll just show up periodically in future chapters as well, which is also pretty cool. Chapter 2. You see where I'm going with this? Chapter 2. The room between there is the room between the dumpster where Spamton gives you the Thorn Ring and a weird route, and the rest of the city. So this might make you think, we need to get the Thorn Ring. But, considering Chapter 1, and we had to get the original Starwalker, implying that we need to have every recruit. So you can't start the weird route, get the Thorn Ring, and then cancel it, because then you miss out on most of the recruits in the cyber world. What's a man to do? Or a woman? Or anyone else in between? I won't discriminate. Well, that's simple. Let's look to Chapter 3. In order to get Chapter 3's egg, you need to be caught by this specific spotlight, say that you're a cheater, and then say you're going nowhere. Well, if you're a cheater, then you could always just go into the game's files and alter some lines of code in order to give yourself the Thorn Ring in your inventory. Or if that's a bit too scary to mess with the game's files, you could always just boot up the Spamton save editor, move your chapter file, like your save file, into the slot, and then you can just alter your inventory to have the Thorn Ring, or hell, even the Twisted Sword. I would say the Thorn Ring, just, for reasons I'll explain in a little bit, but in the end it's gonna work out. and I'll tell you why right now. In Chapter 4, you get the egg from 2 different methods. The first method is you go into this room here, and then you just be very careful with going to the right. Do not go left, because then you'll be teleported to the start of the room and it'll mess up your count. But 19 glass pane windows after the darkener that says, I don't know, you will find that there's an egg on one of the windows. If you go up into this window, you'll end up going through to a secret room. So if you go back and forth between the corridor and the hidden room, you'll end up getting another egg. So what does that mean? Well, if we take a look at later on in the chapter, because this is the second sanctuary that you need to be in, and you end up in the third, you can go to this secret room here to the side, and we can tell this darkener here, no, we didn't forget anything. Be a liar and tell them that you didn't forget anything. They'll open the way, and you can go get the egg. So what does being a liar have to do with getting the best possible ending to Deltarune? Well, it doesn't. You see, you gotta look to the room that you find on the other side of the glass pane. What I want you to focus on is this bookshelf right here, because if you interact with it, it'll tell you a book, something about like the sky's tears or something like that. I'll fix my pronunciation and editing, if I said it wrong. Basically, it involves an item that you can only get once, supposedly, is a full heal no matter how much health is lost, and you need at least 2,000 dark dollars in order to get it. Granted, your eggs that you've unlocked throughout the chapters will also contribute to this. So basically, in the first sanctuary, you need to go to this room here and donate 2,000 dark dollars. Then in the second sanctuary, when you reach the same room, you'll unlock this like bitter tear. You want to keep that bitter tear because I'm sure that'll be useful later on. Now let's talk about Chapter 5. Chapter 5's egg is probably my favorite one because it's the only egg that I found completely blind by myself on my first playthrough. It's also the only egg I found by myself, period, but still. So if you want to know how to get it but you don't want any spoilers, I'll tell you right now, and then you can skip to whatever this time here is, because it doesn't matter too much from what I've seen. Now, all you need to do is cut the grass and follow the dog. Alright, let's start here with the dash gates and the Star Walker. You go across, and then you just need to go back and forth cutting the grass. But you'll see one small patch keeps growing back, so you keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it, and then you see the balloon. So you follow the balloon, it goes to the left side of the room, and then when you go there, you end up in a weird dog room where the annoying dog is riding a balloon and, taking care of some flowers. If you interact with those flowers in the same order that the dog is tending to them, then you'll unlock a dog watering can. Now be careful when you pick this up, because the annoying dog will try to take it from you, because of course he will. All you need to do is use the watering can to water this path here to the left, and it'll lead you to the last egg. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, well, what good is cutting grass or following a balloon or following what a dog says? Well, I think that's the whole thing. I wonder if this is supposed to be Toby telling us exactly what we need to know. Because leaving these eggs here, not just as something to collect for later, but also as clues as to how we're supposed to beat the game. Right, after all, in order to get Chapter 5's egg, we need to follow the dog's clues. And in order to get the best ending for Deltarune, you would have to follow the clues that Toby left behind. And since Toby usually depicts himself as the annoying dog, it makes quite a bit of sense. So, in order to get the true good ending for Deltarune, we are going to have to A, recruit every single Darkener we can, including both of the Star Walkers, most likely. I'm not sure about the Tropical Star Walker, but I'd be willing to bet that we'll have to recruit that one as well. B, we're gonna have to get the Thorn Ring, but we can't do it via the weird route, otherwise we can't get the recruits, so we're gonna have to be a cheater and alter the game's files. C, we're gonna have to get all of the Shadow Crystals, which I believe is supposed to be some sort of test of Chris's strength, and specifically through the soul, essentially allowing the Twisted Sword to be created, possibly through a final secret boss with Sham in Chapter 6, in order to get the pure crystal, and then using that and the Thorn Ring to make the Twisted Sword. Perhaps having a lower trance for Chris will allow better symbiosis with the soul. You never know. The point is, we're going to need all of this, because when the roaring does come, I have an idea of what it could be like. Sure, all of the Darkners and all of our recruits are going to turn into statues, but I'd be willing to bet there's one that will at least be able to last far longer than the others. Think about it. Ralsei is a Darkner who has been to so many Dark Worlds, and yet he has never been at risk of turning into a statue. I'd be willing to bet that he will turn into a statue eventually, but it won't be immediate like with all the others. After all, he came from the pure darkness of Dark Fountain and Castletown, so it would make sense that he'd be able to withstand all the darkness from the roaring, even if it is for a limited time. So what if all of the strength from all of these recruits is able to empower Ralsei, or hell, even the soul? I like to picture, for context, I like to picture Flowery as a good example of what determination is, or like, red souls. Because as we see, the red soul is truly unremarkable. It doesn't really have any useful traits or magic to it. But then you end up changing the color. For example, you have green, which allows you to protect a lot more easily to keep attacks from even hitting you in the first place. You have the yellow soul, which allows you to fire off big shots, and the purple soul allows you to be more restricted while you're moving. I mean, it's still something different. Then you have the orange soul, which is like yellow soul, except you're always moving and you're able to dash. Also, hold on, if you weren't in the orange soul mode, would you have been able to just hold still during Flowery's blue attacks? I need to know this. Point is, when does Flowery become the strongest he is, not including his fake stats? That's right, it's when he's being backed by the other flowers. Without the other flowers' help, I'd be willing to bet that orange is the strongest flower. Seth is definitely the best flower, in my opinion, but I'm not here to glaze Seth just yet. Point is, I like to think of Flowery as a sort of representation of what the determination soul, I guess, the red soul is like. Granted, we don't know if determination is the red soul's trait. I think it is, though. Anyways, this will allow Chris to use the Twisted Sword to end the roaring by doing what they need to do. So what do you guys think? I'll follow this up with another lesson where I'll talk more about the themes of Deltarune and how it ties back into this, and more importantly, I will answer the following question. Where the fuck are the bedrooms in the Flower Castle? Alright? I don't need to know where they all sleep. Except for Seth. I don't need to know where all the flowers sleep. I just want to know where they go. Sure, we can say that, yellow was behind the yellow door because you even see he keeps his stuff there, or, blue is probably at the stage because, of course he would be. But does orange just stay behind those, screens at all time, or does green just hop between the diner and the cafe? I doubt it. I guarantee you that Seth is going to want a place to put their soon-to-be most prized possession, so, I'll let you think about that one. But until next time, I will see you all when I see you.